Now, when we look at what has been going on, because security covers a lot of areas. You have economic security, you have social security, but you also have security for persons who are traveling on the road within our transport system. And what we have had happening over multiple years, probably over decades, is a system where there's a lot of lawlessness on the roads that have permeated into the school system. You know, catching a minibus is almost like a high-risk act. And we need to find ways to address these problems. So for the safety measures in the transport system and in our public system, we need to enhance traffic light functions. I know many of you have seen traffic lights, and you really have to stop where it's there, but it shows green, red, or it doesn't show anything, but it's not functioning. The street lights, Robert referred to coming down from the airport. In a lot of cases, the street lights are, and he's on that route is probably one of the better lighted highways, but the situation compared to any other Caribbean countries is deplorable. We have poorly lighted streets. A lot of streets have no stop signs or no smart signage. You don't know, whether to stop, to go. You don't know if you're going up a one-way. It puts you in a position where you're more likely to get into an accident. We have to improve the conditions of our roads, make them into smart roads where you can, just from driving on the road has a clear demarcation. There are signs you can look at and follow, instead of these roads where there are few persons from the developed countries that would come to Guyana to drive on our roads because they're thinking this is crazy, this is suicidal. They're on supposed highways and there's no middle line. So they're not into that guesstimate business. That looks very, very dangerous, and it is very dangerous. And a lot of the accidents that are happening is because of the lack of what I wouldn't even call it smart, just the basics on the road. It's not there, the demarcation lines. There's no safety zone. Think of anywhere in Guyana where you have an emergency shoulder, so that if you get a puncture or you need to stop for some emergency, that you can just pull off into the corner. We've been building new highways on the East Coast and the East Bank, and none of them have a safety shoulder that you can actually park into. So it shows the kind of backward thinking and not the forward thinking that we need to get this country into this accelerated economic development. We need to facilitate the use of information technology and communication equipment for vessels on our waterways. As you know, there's a high level of piracy. I mean, every quarter you might hear about 5 fishermen disappearing. It is my feeling that there is no proper mechanism or system that can monitor the vessels that go out in our waterways. And this puts our fishermen at risk and other persons who use the waterways to earn their livelihood. We have poorly maintained sidewalks or non-existent. And I have grown up in South Renville Gardens, and there's a thoroughfare there, Aubrey Barker Road. And as soon as you get 10 minutes of rainfall, half the road is flooded. The sidewalk really is more like a pasture. And it is very embarrassing to see these things, especially when you've traveled and seen much better. Sometimes I wonder how, I've driven from from Florida to California, 3,000 miles. And I've never even encountered one pothole. And I've looked at the landscaping and you don't see the garbage and the debris and all of that seems to be prevalent in Guyana and has been normalized. Meaning that we've gotten accustomed to it. We've gotten accustomed to seeing people on the streets that are homeless, people, urinating on the streets and doing all manner of things on the street that are quite abnormal or unacceptable for a civilized society. But we've gotten normalized to this poor infrastructure for our roads, and we can advance that also to the vehicles that we use, because we've been put in a spot where many cannot afford the cars that are offered at these, and I like Robert's term, extortionary duties and taxes, where you're paying between 100 to 300% in taxes, depending on the vehicle you bring in. And a lot of what has happened on the roads, I believe also can be, and we believe also, can be attributed to the age of these aged vehicles that don't have any kind of security apparatus, no kind of warning, like if you're going out the lane, you get a beep, or the passenger airbags, they're not on both sides. Maybe that minibus didn't even have a passenger airbag that had the tragedy that occurred yesterday. And these things speak to gross neglect by our government. It is not something that has been happening for 5 years or for 10 years. This has been going on for quite a while. These excessive duties and taxes that has oppressed Guyanese and taken away that hope, that happiness, that sense of patriotism that will bind you to your country and seek to develop it in a way and provide for your family, and where the future, you see it in Guyana instead of seeing it abroad. A lot of the vehicle accidents have to be investigated as criminal incidents, not a civil incident, because you have a high use of reckless driving and people using drugs and alcohol. And this has to be addressed with proper training programs. And just like the policemen will have to undergo certain tests and training and background checks, the same should be done for a lot of these drivers who are like pilots, taking you on a ride for 100 miles, and they're stoned, or they've been drinking, they're just reckless and wild, and it endangers lives. And this is why we are at a point where our the vehicle death rate in this country is actually exceeding the murder rate for 2019. I don't think this is very, very abnormal. We need to implement a program to reduce and eliminate farm animals on the roadway. Well, this has been with us for a long time. There has been some reduction, but still, we were in Skeldon with our team, Change Guyana team, and many times we came across a horse or a cow on the road, and if you're not very alert, this could lead to serious consequences. Then we have a lot of times accidents occur, and what happens? You heard in the initial report that 3 people died and 4 maybe are seriously injured. But because of the absence of an ambulance system or a first responder system, persons that are not trained in that field, with the skill to deal with accident victims, they're picking up people and putting them in a taxi or in the back of a pickup truck. So the 3 persons that passed away, it becomes 4 and 5 and 6 because we don't have a good first responder system. So these are things that have to be addressed urgently. I just want to take a little segue into a point I think was raised by all the commentators here. And it's this issue, the elephant in the room, which is what? The racial divide, the disunity and the division. And I think of a gentleman, T. Boone Pickens. He said, if you're chasing elephants, don't get distracted by rabbits. So we're not going to be distracted by the criticisms and the people who are attempting to do backstabbing. We'll focus on bridging this racial divide. And it's a security issue also, because what happens around election time is that people fear for their lives. I recall being in Linden and told that, they made sure that a certain person from a demographic could not get out of their house on a particular day to vote because they knew he was going to vote for a particular party. These things shouldn't happen in a free and democratic society. So overall, the general problem we have in Guyana is the absence of a sustained implementation and execution of policies. We make promises, we might even start the process, but there is no sustaining of that policy. It's as if the money, and this is why our budget could have gone up by 130 million over the last 6 years, $130 billion, and we have seen no change, but the money is expended and squandered because there is no sustaining of the projects that these monies are supposed to be deployed for. So Change Guyana will take a holistic approach in improving security, reducing crime, and the vehicular carnage on our roadways by focusing on poverty, reducing unemployment, providing more opportunities for youth development, having security infrastructure that includes security cameras and closed-circuit televisions, and designing smart roads. And this is very important, the design of roads that are helpful to drivers. A lot of persons, you get your license, and you go on the road to drive, but the road is almost like a maze because there are no signs on the road. This is virtually the only country on the road that you can drive for. And we're speaking about urbanized areas where a lot of streets have no names. So we live in a country where probably more than half the streets have no names. So it leads to a kind of lawlessness and a sense of like, where is the development? Where is the progress? If you cannot simply have a street sign or a stop sign or signage that would help the drivers, we are not living in a developed society or even a developing society. This is why we are in this underdeveloped state for so long, because of the lack of delivery by our politicians over successive administrations. They make the best promises, they can put out the best manifestos, but in terms of implementation, it's at a very, it leaves much to be desired. So we must focus on crime prevention, have well-lighted roads, proper signage and safety education instead of extensive emphasis on enforcement and punishment. And I just want to repeat that we focus on prevention and not enforcement and punitive measures, because it's from prevention that will reduce the high levels of crime, the high levels of robberies and murders, and the carnage that we have on the road. So prevention is key to our security policy. And I'll reiterate a point made by a learned mind, that the best ideas are common property. So nobody owns a particular promise or a commitment. The real test is not the words, it's the action, it's the deed, it's what is accomplished out of that process. And too often we've had promises made that have been broken over and over again. You can go back to the manifestos, probably since 92, and at best, under any particular version of the two old parties, there might be a 20% level of introduction, and that is putting it probably, that's been very aggressive. Because I've seen instances where 14 promises have been made to one region and not a single one has been delivered. So I'm saying to you, now is the best time to join Change Guyana for the inclusive and accelerated development of Guyana. And on this note, I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas and to have happy holidays. Thank you.